I'm Peggy Pirro, and this is Food From Here. My guest this episode is a Kentucky native who spent years traveling the world and living in other parts of the country before returning to our area about 10 years ago and digging into this Midwestern earth. Jubilee Woolley Fly has a degree in linguistics, and in listening to her, you get the sense of how much words matter as she speaks of what it means to pay attention to what this land that feeds us asks of us in return. Jubilee hosts foraging classes and other events at the farm in Northern Vanderburgh County that she shares with her partner, musician Troy Miller. Toward the end of our conversation, she describes her process for making what she calls yard pesto. Later in the episode, we'll have a preview of the farmers market situation in our area, where the markets will be this year, when they start, and what we can look forward to. And now, here's my conversation with Jubilee Fly. Jubilee, welcome to Food From Here.
Thank you for having me. I've been a big fan of yours for some time and all your endeavors, and I'm grateful that you're doing this show and grateful for WNIN for supporting you, and thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Indeed. Can we start the conversation by you telling me, what kind of food did you eat when you were growing up?
What first comes to mind is the toasted peanut butter. I guess it's like an open-faced toasted peanut butter. Coming home from school and having that was a mainstay, along with chocolate milk. And credit to my mom, she did try to curtail the sugar intake. I think the cereal had to, sugar couldn't be the first or second ingredient, so I was allowed Cheerios. And she would hide the ding-dongs from me, but I would even find the children's vitamin, the aspirin that were in the
orange-flavored bear aspirin.
Yes, and just eat them all and eat all the Flintstones. And I really didn't eat eat much vegetables until later. I don't think I ate an raw apple, in the full form until I was in my 20s. So, and my grandmother's cooking comes to mind, which was fried chicken and if you lose weight, I'll buy you a Barbie doll. Now, do you want blackberry cobbler for dinner or tea? So, yeah, my diet has shifted completely from that.
Yeah, I would say so. So when you talk about the chocolate milk, did you get Nestle's Quick where you had to stir in that chalky kind of chocolatey thing, or did it already come chocolate from the store?
Oh, yeah, no, we weren't that decadent. It had to be mixed in whatever. I guess it was whatever syrup, probably.
Oh, okay.
So not already mixed. So I did have to work. I had to toast the bread too.
Yeah, but that is so good. With the peanut butter kind of melts into the toast. Even now, it's like a nice treat. So you have a few acres out in Northern Vanderburgh County. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? How you came to be there and what you're doing?
Well, my honey bunny, Troy Miller, has lived there almost 30 years now. So he's been there at this beautiful farm home built in the 1880s. And there's a lovely barn that was 1870s. And I moved out there to be with him. But then I found myself with all this land. So I did go start to transform the landscape a bit. I had lived in Southern California where you're lucky to get a lot, a small parcel. You had to wait on a waiting list to get a small parcel to garden in a community garden. So to have all this dirt to play in was a dreamland, and it is for me.
Yeah. So the barn preceded the house.
They say, I learned from Stan at Wilder Library, someone from Common Grounds told me to contact him to find some history on the property. I'd gone down and looked for the deed, but it was too old. So he explained that the barn was often erected initially for them to start to work, and then the house would be built. So I guess it was common practice for a farm.
And the places on your property where you garden, it's kind of spread out. You've got one plot that's kind of near the front, and then you've got nut trees that you've put in over the past year or two around the back. As you've worked on the barn, you've added other garden plots, I guess you would call them, or places where maybe you've let the natural plantings flourish. Can you describe it a little, paint us a picture?
Sure. Yeah, when I first arrived, there wasn't any landscaping other than the established trees, the beautiful large maples. Been there before Troy moved in, and he has planted some like the catalpas and a pecan tree in the back. And I just started, I think my philosophy was instead of mowing, I'd rather have plants, intentional plants. And I do keep some that are there, but a lot of it is rewilding. Right now I'm spending lots of time digging up things like honeysuckle and all the mulberry and rewilding it. But I've also intentionally planted a lot. I started first with a small herb garden and just went from there. So it's just little by little, like little bites, little baby steps into putting pathways in between what isn't garden. So I've just started with different shapes, like a big rectangle for the vegetable garden and a larger triangle where I've put asparagus, strawberries, more perennials are some of my favorites. And then I really like the natives. So I'm not a purist into natives, but I do appreciate them. And I have also the assistance of Beautiful Edibles Grow, Mary and Roger Winstead. I think it was Roger's idea to gild the berm with like nut trees and fruit. So gilding, meaning the taller ones at the back and coming down to maybe having like pawpaws at the back and elderberry and blueberry in the forefront. And so I've worked on that the past couple of years, planting maybe like 50 hazelnut and 50 pawpaw around the property.
Where are you getting your trees?
I've got a lot from, I'm going to say Lavender Timmons, because the name of the organization, she has a lot. She does a lot for the community and growing. And the name of I know it's through the DNR, but she gets truckloads and helps plant all over the area and has sold some of the native bare roots. And also through other plant sales. I did the Master Gardener, and I've gotten things from them. One company, is it Living Roots? That they do a lot of beautiful native shrubs and trees.
We'll put some of these all of them, if I can track them down, in the show notes so people can find them.
Cool.
Okay. You get bees for several years. Do you still have them?
They are there. Yeah, there's 2 hives that have been out in these warmer temps.
Yeah, waking up.
They're waking. Well, they stay in there, but they're coming out. They're coming out of their hibernation at a certain temperature. They'll emerge.
Can you tell us a little bit about your beekeeping?
Sure. I've actually been told that I'm a bee haver, not a beekeeper, and that resonates with me. Because I'm not doing it solely for honey production. I actually let them keep their honey. I don't feed them. So my main thing is to make sure that they're happy. When I moved here almost 10 years ago, I knew I wanted bees. But I was in town at my mother's, and I didn't know if that were even possible, but I called the city council person and they said it was, but I'm glad. She's by U of E, and I want to be friends with my neighbors. So once I came out to Troy's property, I think it was like the following spring, I got my first hive, and some friends of his gave me the boxes and such. So that helped. I studied it for like a year or more beforehand. That's what I had been told by other beekeepers, like really study it because it's intensive. And many said, oh, that's an expensive hobby. And I did it anyway. Much like the renegade me, I did it anyway. And I enjoy having them. I really love them. They're neat creatures for sure, and I'm happy to have them there. And I'm also working on having the native bees, and doing that by building homes for them and putting all the flowers and the native plants there help attract them. Really have a diverse biodiversity property.
They all have different tastes, don't they? The different pollinators, the bees, and the various kinds of bees and the butterflies.
Oh, I thought you meant the taste of the bees. I'm like,
yes, let's eat them. No, if any bees are listening, I was joking. One of the things you got involved with, and I guess maybe this was last year, was the organization Partners in Food and Farming. And they're a relatively new organization here in Indiana, and they pair up new and established farmers in a mentorship program. It's designed to build a support network, basically, and also to help new farmers, find their way. And you got involved with this, I think, in their inaugural mentorship year. Is that correct?
Yes, it was a pilot program, but it was successful, so it's continuing.
How did you find out about them? And let's talk a little bit about that program that you got involved with.
I first found out about them through the Hoosier Young Farmers Coalition. They're supporting young and beginning farmers of Indiana. And again, from Mary and Roger Winstead, I probably will mention them numerous times throughout this because they have been my farming saints. And they created, along with some other local growers, the Local Growers of Southern Indiana Facebook group. And I believe Mary posted on there as well. But I get emails from the Hoosier Young Farmers Coalition.
So that's how you learned about them. But at some point between you moving out to does it have a name? Does your farm have a name yet?
Well, I go by Jubilee Funny Farm. And then there's Miller Barn. And then I wanted to name the house, but anyway, there's enough names.
At some point during that process, you realized that you could use some help in figuring out how to get from where you were to where you wanted to go, or maybe help in envisioning where you could possibly go with this piece of land. So I assume that kind of propelled you in the direction of seeking out something like this mentorship program?
I feel like a lot of it has been a natural, just kind of natural process, and not knowing that I would go from gardener to farmer. And I have to say, I've been doing this for a while. I have to give credit to my sister, Opal Fly, who is a wonderful gardener, avid reader, and has been a source of inspiration and help for me. But as far as this property, I think, again, it was the Winsteads who I met at Common Ground and came in bringing their beautiful produce and flowers, and I was making kombucha, and we started talking. And from there, I feel like they kind of saw the bigger picture that I hadn't seen and helped really hold my hand through this process of seeing the barn as agro-tourism and seeing, I guess, maybe what I was just digging in the dirt and wanting to just cover the property and seeing that it could be a viable working farm. So again, it's Beautiful Edibles Grow. They are really pillars in the community of helping farmers.
I had a picture while you were talking of, it's almost like an allowing the information that you need to come through rather than planning.
Again, my sister, Opal Fly, gave me a book about 15 years ago, the Findhorn Garden book. The local library, I believe, has it here in Evansville. And it that has been a huge inspiration for me. I didn't see it initially when I got there, and that's part of being in the flow, tapping in.
The Findhorn experience was quite magical, as I recall. I read that book a long time ago.
It's quite magical, and it still exists in Scotland, and I'll make it there one day. And they started meditating and getting guidance from within on how to grow this garden on a seaside area where nothing was growing. I think agriculture, all kinds of people came to witness this because they really didn't believe it. So that's a big part of my work now, is going within and finding and sitting in that place of being and presence and letting it flow from there.
Yeah, I think you can learn a lot about your piece of land just by sitting on it.
So that to me is the biggest inspiration, and within that you're in that space of being in presence, and from there is the true inspiration, and you're putting it out there. So people or whatever will come in alignment with that, and that is, I feel, what has happened in my life and on the property.
Have you always been drawn to the traditional kitchen arts, like, well, I'll say making your own sourdough and growing herbs and processing them and using them in your cooking or in your making kombucha or all of the things that traditionally came from the home? Did you always have that?
Oh, I mean the traditional chocolate milk and hot peanut butter. I feel like my mom's generation didn't go into that. They saw the convenience, and I get that. And maybe I picked up some from my grandmother, but I didn't live with her. I would visit her. And it's another thing within, going within, this will be a common theme, but going within is really where you're letting go and letting things flow and going with where your heart takes you. So sometimes you don't know where, if you let go, you don't know where you might go. And also it's a topic for another show, but I came with some autoimmune disorders. So I had arthritis by 8. And so later in my 20s, when I was going to go on disability in a motorized vehicle, is when an angel came and said, go see this health doctor. And from there is when I began to eat my first apple. And thus was the journey of healing. And initially I did a lot of food and detox, and then later, going through the mind, body, soul. So I started a lot with the body.
How old were you when that journey began?
24. Mm-hmm. I believe I was 24 when they finally said, we can't help you and go on disability. And something within me was like, no. So I'm grateful for that voice within me.
You tapped some maple trees on your property last year, is that right?
Yes. Actually, it would have been, I think, the year before.
The year before?
Yes. And
what was that process like?
I'm not sure where that inspiration. If I hear of something, I kind of like, well, can I do that? And when it comes, free food, okay. So there's so many resources online. So I went and ordered. I had to order the spires and learned how to drill the holes and hang buckets from them. The trickiest part is keeping the sap cool before you cook it. And I didn't invest any money in the cooking paraphernalia. Mm-hmm. Used regular big pots over a fire, and Troy kept a fire going for like 3 days, and it was really a magical time. We cracked pecans and sat by the fire as it boiled down. So what is the ratio? It's like, is it 60 to 1? 60 gallons to 1, or I don't know, maybe it's 40. I'm not sure of the exact ratio, but I ended up with like a quart. I don't know how many gallons. It's quite a few. It's a process. If you were to invest in the other pans, flat pans that'll cook out quicker, you'd get a nicer syrup, and it wouldn't take as long. That's what I recommend if anyone's interested in doing it. And I invite anyone of these things I'm into are welcome to come and participate, because to me it's all about community. When I envisioned doing these things, living on the land 20 some odd years ago, it was as a communal affair. It was never me doing it solely. I enjoy and I invite having people participate.
So we're coming into the spring, and this is a good time to start thinking about the year ahead. Now, we've already basically gone through the mapling, is that what it's called? The mapling season? The sap tapping part of the year. But this is a nice time of year to begin thinking about how the year might unfold and laying out possible activities to do at your farm. Have you thought very much about how the year might unfold for you?
I am feeling more activity. I took a hiatus last year. There were so many things going on, but I feel the energy of it now, and I'm looking at scheduling a few yard pesto classes. I've done some in the past, and they're a lot of fun, and they show you that you can go out in your yard and pick the plants and make a pesto. You can make other things, but I enjoy making the pesto. It's fun. So you go out and you learn which ones and identify them and learn of their medicinal properties, and then you make a pesto and you can eat it afterwards and enjoy it. I love sharing that knowledge. I love foraging. I love showing people. I will go to properties and show them what they can make from it. And other than edibles, there's other, I like to pick violets and primrose flowers and infuse them in oils and for facial things. So it goes beyond edibles. But that is one thing. And I grow gourds, so having the gourd band, hint, hint, put that in there, and decorating, painting gourds, that is on the docket, and songwriting workshops, that's exciting, and music. I know maybe some of these things don't seem like agro-tourism, but I will quote Troy and, hey, whatever gets them out there excited and to know about agro-tourism. And
yeah, many roads, many paths.
roads.
Yes. Can you go into a little more detail about the foraging? That always interested me, and I wasn't sure how you went about doing it, because there are ethical issues, of course, with foraging. So you have to get permission not only from the landowner but from the plants.
Well, that is the nexus of my existence right now, is tapping into the intelligence of the plants and asking for their permission. I think that's very important. And yes, permission all around. And I feel like I came across that organically too. I went to Europe and I spent some time in England. And so the universe aligned me with this person that was a forager. I think I mentioned to someone that I was into it. Maybe it's because I'm into free food. It fascinates me. And so I connected with this person and I started learning there. I pretty much spent my days foraging and making things. So when I moved here and moved out to that property, there's a whole wild area that was magical. And I spent days going out there and foraging and learning all these things. So it was organically. And then at one point, there were a lot of plant identification groups on Facebook. So I was on there a lot looking up and through books and learning, and just out of my personal curiosity. I could go further into things that I don't know.
Please do. I would like to get really specific about when you're out foraging. What time of day do you go? When is the best time to find what you're looking for? What are you looking for? And do you have an end point in mind? Do you go out specifically to find a certain plant? Or do you have this constellation of possibilities in mind and just see what is available?
Initially here, I was just learning. So whatever I went out and what's this? So whatever I was called to, and then finding out what it was. So now knowing what is in season, and that constitutes what I'm going to go out for. So for instance, elderflower season, that's one of my favoriteest times. I like to go out in the morning. You want to go out before it's too warm, but it's best, maybe the dew is dried a little bit, seems is ideal for me. And I'm wearing my wellies. You never know, there's the poison ivy. So I get geared up. I'm wearing overalls and long sleeves and a hat almost always, and my scissors and baskets, collecting the flowers. And whatever is in season. Each season, this is a whole nother show, but each season are different things that are going to come. That's the exciting part of it, is it's always changing.
Did you ever worry about finding something toxic and not recognizing it as toxic?
I don't have that worry. Elder does have, so maybe we should put a disclaimer. I'm picking the flowers, but the berries, there is a disclaimer, and I would I would advise everyone to do their research and go within. I haven't had that fear. If I'm ever in question, then I'm not going to. So that goes with mushrooms, taking some mushroom classes. But if I'm in question, then I'm not going to put that in my mouth. That's another part of being in tune. And that's the ultimate of being in tune and in this awareness. I mean, it's all connected to food. Being in that space of stillness, of being, and how that connects to food, since we're talking about food. And to me, it connects in every way. To me, I say Gaia, to Mother Earth. You're connecting. She's the one providing everything that we're eating. So the flora and the fauna. And so that's a big part of my existence right now, is tapping into that and sharing that with others. We tend to get a little tied up and worried about her. And it's kind of like you think about her, think about your children. If you're worrying about your children, you're not trusting that they're following their divine path. So worrying about her doesn't help her flow, knowing that she is abundant. Now, I'm not saying take advantage of her. So that's part of being listening to her and feeling her. She's super powerful. And getting in that stillness and connecting with her and her energetics.
I was going to ask you, and I will right now, do you have a morning routine?
I do. And it does change because I do go with the flow, and it's fun to watch where I'll do one thing for a while and another. But definitely meditating and gratitudes. I'll do it nightly, before you go to bed, when you wake up, gratitudes and greeting the day and getting that place of setting the intention and knowing that everything will flow from that place of highest wisdom and intelligence and inspiration. Everything will flow from there. So that's more of my morning routine, and I might mix it up with Kundalini yoga or some other form. But those, to me, let me connect with the energetics of the day and let everything flow from there.
We could have an entire conversation about meditation and connectivity and getting knocked off center. And
yes, but the important part, and I was going to, the part of braiding sweetgrass, and a lot of people revere and celebrate that book, and the author came through here, was that last year, is the reciprocity. I know that was a buzzword, but it is having the reverence and the gratitude for everything. I mean, you could take water, just one thing from Mother Earth, and your car, it just goes in every bit, your shower, and take that to a whole nother level if you felt called to do so. But that's super powerful. And I feel like that's how that relates to food. And being in that place of centeredness is where if you want to go on a physiological level of digestion and
all that takes place right in the center of the body, which is so opaque to us, the body, really. I mean, literally. So it takes care of us as long as, it takes care of us, period. And we can help or hinder, and we can stay aligned, or we can get overinvested in ego.
Right, either way. And it's cliche to say, but it's really finding that balance too.
Let's talk a little bit about the historic barn that you've got on your property. I know over the years you've had events, other music events, as well as I think you had an art show there and some other festival type activities. Can you tell us what you do at that barn?
Yes, that was Troy. He's a musician, and he heard his friend play fiddle in the barn, and then that was it. It was soon after a stage was erected, and it was mainly for playing music and gatherings for many years. I guess it's been about a little over 10 years, but since I've been there, we've added a few things. So we did have an art show for one of Troy's friends, and Claire and some other people came and had an art show, and
That would be Claire Helfrich, the potter.
The potter,
Yeah.
yes. And
I think you had an event where you had, I want to say, people from the gardening community.
we did have an event. So another thing that organically came was monarch butterfly raising, something that I hadn't set out like, I'm going to raise monarchs this year. It was going out and seeing some eggs, just curious if I could find eggs on a milkweed, and I did, and then reading up on it, the importance of help rearing them, especially where I was going. They would have been mowed down, so it happens a lot. So I brought them in, and I don't know how many monarchs the first year, but I had probably like a dozen monarchs. So I started raising them and decided to have a monarch symposium. And that wonderful, knowledgeable person from Knox County came, and someone from Warwick County Water Conservation came. And so, it was just a little symposium. I wanted to help educate the public on that. I think it would be really fun to have a city project where they awarded schools and other organizations for having butterfly gardens and native gardens for native insects. And I think that would be fun.
That would be a good thing. Yes. So you haven't specifically pursued your work as a means of creating an income stream. It's done for the love of doing it and for the curiosity and stuff. But I will say that when we were at Common Ground, you did have a small kombucha production facility there as part of the kitchen, and people did partake. So there was perhaps not an intentional income stream, but it existed. It certainly existed.
It was a good trade. I feel like following your heart, it is lucrative, whether it's bartering or trading or for community or for my own well-being. It is essentially lucrative.
I read recently someone suggested we work on redefining the idea of wealth, for example, as not just the stuff that you might possess, but the people and your relationships with your environmental community, the animals and the plants and so forth, and everything that is around you. That the idea of wealth can be much more substantial than what's in your bank account.
Well, I like the idea. I like redefining that wealth. I feel like it's probably been a little, it's been skewed. I won't say a little, and that has been the motivation. So money has been the motivation for things. And when you shift that to being heart-based, it changes everything. And when you change your identity with money, because money is not a bad thing, it's energy, just like anything. It's just that we have put some barriers around it. So I say releasing those barriers and doing what your heart's called to do. And I mean, that is wealth, and it all comes into alignment that way.
I wonder if I could ask you to describe a little process if you're going out into your yard and you're picking something to make into, say, your pesto that you were talking about. What might you look for? And then can you tell me, after you've gathered it, how much you would gather and what you would do with it when you bring it into your kitchen?
So going out for yard pesto, as I call it, in the spring, this time of year, there will be things emerging that are here to help us cleanse our lymphatic system. And we've been in hibernation and a little bit slower in the stagnation. So there will be things like cleavers, who a lot of people don't appreciate because it will stick to you. But it's there for that. You could pick that and chickweed. And it's super medicinal. So I almost always put chickweed in. And that tends to be around through the season, even through summer. Right now you see the violets, the purple violets and the white variegated violets. They're popping out. their leaves, their flowers. I would pick them. And just yet, there are other things haven't quite come out. I have my herb garden that has lemon balm. I would pick plantain, the leaves of plantain. That's in everybody's yard. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are cursing these things, but I welcome them. I have plantain that are it's like a foot in diameter. They get huge and they are beautiful. And whatever else is in my herb garden, I haven't done pesto yet this year. I just started noticing the chickweed out, so it'll be coming up in April. You can mix other things. You have onions in your yard. I don't always put them in, but you could. I put strawberry leaves, raspberry leaves. I have sorrel growing from my sister, and I love growing that plant because it comes back every year. So I often add that, and I'm going through my garden in my head, trying to picture some things. Like I said, I haven't gone out yet this year, so it's not as fresh. But I also I personally just put pumpkin seeds. I use a food processor, and I process the pumpkin seeds first. I kind of do the hard things first. So pumpkin seeds, and then sea salt, and then I'll put in the greenery and blend, and I add garlic. I use cloves of garlic, and then I drizzle the olive oil or whatever oil you like to use and puree it that way.
So you end up with a paste or something a little looser than a paste?
I guess it's like a paste.
Yeah, and then you'd use it like you would use any kind of pesto. You could put it on toast. You could put it in a salad dressing or put it on your pizza or cook with it and so forth. Yeah,
and even cut up carrots. Often when I do the class, I'll cut up carrots and cucumbers and crudité of sorts, if you will, for the pesto. But yeah, I enjoy making sourdough pizza, so it goes on that. But yeah, you can use it in so many ways. Super medicinal.
Looking forward to doing that this spring. Do you intend to teach a class on that this year, or is this just something you'd encourage people to go out and experiment with on their own, or both?
Both. I do intend to, I would say, mid-April, and don't have a definite, but I would say I think it's the second or third week of April. I might do 2 weekends out in the barn, and I will post that somewhere.
That was my next question. How can people find you?
Read your mind. That is something I could work better on, is the social aspect of it. I have I'm kind of co-birthing 2 new endeavors, and they're due around the same time. So it's pretty funny to see. One's been in the making for several years, and that's Starlight Jubilee. That website is in the making, right? It's in the gestation period right now, and it will be out soon. And the other is a local nonprofit, the Tapestry Room, along with some other beautiful humans here in the area. That website is up. That is thetapestryroom.com. We are a nonprofit doing community events, and there might be some things posted on there. I am on Instagram as Jubilee Funny Farm, and there's also a Facebook presence, Jubilee Funny Farm, and there's also Miller Barn, Evansville. And if I get the inspiration, there'll be some TikToks, but that takes a little more. Well, and we do plan, I don't know if I should plug another podcast, but Starlight Jubilee will have a podcast. We're starting that in the summer. So there's all kinds of things that are just, it's spring. They're springing.
I like that, for sure. Well, Jubilee, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. This has been enlightening and really fun.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
The local farmers market season is nearly here, with the first of several weekly markets set to open at the end of April. There are some changes in this year's markets, and there might be more to come, but as of this recording, here's what we're looking at in 2024. The first outdoor market to open this year will be the relocated Evansville Farmers Market. For the last couple of years, they've set up at the old Washington Square Mall parking lot at Washington and Green River. But this season, they'll be downtown. You'll find them at the U.S. Incubator Building at 815 John Street. And they're weekly this year, setting up every Saturday from April 27th to September 21st. Franklin Street Bazaar opens May 25th at its usual location on the block surrounding the West Branch Library on Franklin Street. They'll be open through August 24th. Market on Main is set to open June 5th through September 18th on Main Street in downtown Evansville. Market on Main is a Wednesday market, and they set up at the 600 block of Main by the Ford Center. Henderson Farmers Market is scheduled to open May 4th. This is a 3-day-a-week market, and it looks like they're still looking for a market manager for this season. You can find info on that on their Facebook page. Also, as a reminder that back on the Evansville side of the river, Ryman's Farm Market in Darmstadt is a year-round market that's open daily. And May's Farm Market on North St. Joe Avenue will reopen for the season in mid or late April. May's offers a crop calendar on their website, so you can find out what you can expect to see at our area markets over the course of the season. And a dearly departed on our list this year, the town of Newburgh will not host a market for the 2024 season. Here's hoping they can return next year. And that's the show for today. Join us in 2 weeks when we'll meet a homesteading couple who grow herbs and vegetables and raise pigs and goats and offer metalworking and reiki on their farm. It's a bit of Renaissance farming on Evansville's west side. That's next time on Food From Here. Food From Here is produced at Tri-State Media in downtown Evansville, home of WNIN-FM and WNIN-PBS. I'm Peggy Pirro. Thanks for listening.